Hello, I'm Adrian Finnegan. This is Counting the Cost on Al Jazeera, your weekly look at the world of business and economics. This week, South Korea. What looks like a witch's brew of negative factors is coming together in its trillion-dollar economy. It's so potent, it could throw growth off course for months to come. We'll piece together the outlook. Also this week, financial mayhem in India. What was designed as a surgical strike against corruption has sparked a mad scramble for cash. But will the government's bungled banknote withdrawal impact the economy? Plus, $1 billion e-commerce startup here in the Middle East. It wants to rival Amazon, and it's all part of Saudi Arabia's plan to become the biggest technology investor on the planet. They say that when it rains, it pours, and that's certainly the case for one of Asia's most important economies at the moment. A political scandal has sparked massive anti-government protests in South Korea. President Park Geun-hye is facing questions about the financial dealings of an unelected confidant. And it's all happening at the wrong time for the economy. South Korean growth slowed to 2.7% in the third quarter, down from 3.3% in the previous 3 months. But that's not all. There's also trouble at some of the country's biggest conglomerates. Samsung's smartphone recall, a strike at Hyundai Motor, and a major bankruptcy at Hanjin Shipping have hurt production. Well, Samsung plays such a huge role that South Korea is sometimes referred to as the Republic of Samsung. It's also the biggest South Korean chaebol. These are the giant family-owned conglomerates that essentially control industry. The word literally translates to wealth clan, and in South Korean culture, chaebols are powerful dynasties. Samsung Group alone is responsible for 20% of the country's GDP. Its closest rival is the Hyundai Motor Group. Both companies are facing challenges, and both companies are crucial to the growth outlook. Then there's the Trump-China factor. South Korea could benefit from less competition if China is hit by tariffs. But its own free trade agreement may change under new US leadership. President-elect Donald Trump could also ask South Korea to pay more for US military protection. Well, joining us now from Seoul, Florian Kohlbacher. He's the North Asia Director of the Economist Corporate Network. Florian, welcome to Counting the Cost. The South Korean political crisis happening at a delicate juncture, to say the least, economically. We've seen 4 decades of tremendous growth. Is that about to change?
Well, yes. I mean, there's a number of reasons for that. I think the Korean economy is right now at a changing point anyways, with or without political problems. And I think the political issues the country is facing right now is further aggravating the situation. At the same time, we were expecting a presidential election for next year, December anyways, and very often the last year in office for the president is not a particularly productive one. So in that sense, things won't change too badly.
Companies like Samsung and Hyundai play a massive role in the economy. Just to explain to us what the chaebol are and how central they are to doing business in South Korea.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, the chaebol basically conglomerates, highly diversified businesses that are usually family owned, and these families, very often the founding families, still have very strong grip on them. They're very essential to the post-war economic growth of the Korean economy, and they still do play a very strong role today. Some of them went out of business after the Asia financial crisis in 1997, and some of them are currently struggling. So this is also an area where there's scope for improvement for the Korean economy.
So the big question is, will they be dragged into the political crisis? I know politically speaking, some people want to pare back their influence.
Well, it's very difficult to speculate now in what way they might be dragged into the current political crisis. But I think we have a structural issue in the Korean economy, and certainly the startup sector, small and medium-sized companies, need to be strengthened. And I think these are areas where the Korean government needs to work on a shift also away from the traditional sectors, and a lot of these chaebols represent these traditional sectors. If you think about shipbuilding, for example, another industry that is going through dire straits at the moment, I think the focus will have to be on what are the key sectors of the future. The digitization of the economy is certainly a very important point in case here, and this is an area where Korea is actually doing quite well, and some smaller and medium-sized businesses and startups are coming up and playing a more important role here.
Yeah, on that note, this week Samsung made an interesting acquisition. It bought Canada's Hammond International for $8 billion. It's the largest acquisition ever made by a South Korean company. Do you think this gear shift into the auto software business makes sense?
Well, I think against the backdrop of this increasing digitization of the economy, it might indeed make sense. Having said that, it depends really on how the post-merger or post-acquisition integration process is going to work. South Korean companies have been quite successful with their globalization efforts, but conducting M&A activities on a global scale is of course a different beast. And so we will need to see how Samsung is going to really manage this process.
And what about the China factor? How dependent is South Korea on the Chinese market, and how will a Trump presidency impact that relationship?
Right. So obviously China is, as the second largest economy worldwide and a big player here in the region, Asia, very important to South Korea, but also the other countries in the region, such as Japan. So there's certainly an impact. The Economist Intelligence Unit, we're predicting a hard landing for China in 2018, and that downturn, very strong downturn of the Chinese economy, will have deep repercussions also in South Korea that can be felt. But it depends again on which sector we're talking about. At the same time, there are brighter spots around, for example, with the Chinese consumers becoming more and more affluent and moving up the ranks. So there are also business opportunities out there. So it really depends on which sector we're looking at.
Florian, we've seen thousands of people on the streets in anti-government protests. Do you think there's an appetite for real economic change in South Korea?
Yes, definitely, I think. I mean, the South Korean economy is really at a changing point right now, and I do think it is very important that people actually get their voices heard and politicians start listening to their voters, and I think the country is ripe for change, both economically and politically.
Florian, great to have you with us. Many thanks indeed for being with us on Counting the Cost. All right, still to come here on Counting the Cost. Plenty of acrobatics on display at the Iran Air Show this week, but where are all the Airbuses? We'll bring you a report from Kish Island in the Arabian Gulf. Now, it was meant to be a surgical strike against the black economy, but Indians were left stunned when they woke up to find the government had decided to scrap most of the country's existing banknotes. The squeeze on cash happened at the peak of India's wedding season. Millions depend on cash for their livelihood, and many can't easily access banks or ATMs. And now the design of a new bill has been criticised. Fez Jamil reports.
Another day of waiting in line at the banks. The sudden government announcement last week to invalidate 500 and 1,000 rupee notes forced millions of Indians nationwide to queue for hours to exchange their money. Few have seen the new note until we gave them their first glance.
It looks a bit discolored, but the size is bad. It should have been the same as the old 1,000 rupee note.
The color looks like those candy I used to eat when I was a kid.
It looks fine, I suppose, but if you buy 100 rupees of groceries, who will take a 2,000 rupee note?
Most said they were more concerned with functionality than appearance.
Many people have been too busy trying to exchange their old banknotes to really take a close look at the new ones. While the new size and bright colors makes it stand out among India's currency, the aesthetics are coming under some scrutiny.
This one is the worst in a chain of bad designs.
Several designers have criticized the new 2,000 rupee note as a lost opportunity to display India's national identity, values, and brand.
One doesn't see any sense of a design intention in this note. One sees instead just a lot of elements put together. By branding, I mean the kind of India that you want to project. And that isn't just a question of content, it's as much a question of style, which is another way of saying it's not what you're saying, but it's how you're saying it.
These are the Arabic ones, and these are the Hindi ones.
Beyond how the new note looks, it's also raising the issue of language rights. Several Indian languages are written on the back, but Urdu language experts say the Urdu style is wrong. More critically, the inclusion of Hindi numerals for the first time highlights for some the government's preference for one language over others, and claims that's unconstitutional.
Now that it has been pointed out to them, they are not saying anything, that they are not sorry, and they are not saying that it will be deleted from the new notes, nothing like that. And I think this is going to happen as long as this government is in office.
Some see the new note as a lost opportunity. Others say they're more concerned with having some money in hand during this cash crunch.
Well, earlier we spoke to Gaurang Shah, who's the head investment strategist with Mumbai-based Geojit BNP Paribas. He says the impact on the economy won't be long-term.
Well, the impact has been quite huge in the sense almost 86% of the currency that was in circulation was dominated by a 500 and 1,000 rupee note. But at the same time, if you look at the parallel economy that was running with 90% of transaction almost being done in cash, the hardest hit are those people who did not take the advantage of the income disclosure scheme that the government had introduced a couple of months back, not once but twice. And for all those people who were hoarding black money, for them it was necessary to come out and open, give 45% penalty and keep home 55%. For all those people who do not take advantage of that, for them it's sleepless night. For salarized people and people below the poverty line or poor people, it's only inconvenience of maybe another, it's almost 6 days. 8th of November is when the Prime Minister Narendra Modi announced this particular demonetization of 500 and 1,000 rupee notes. It is only a matter of another week or 10 days before we have the RBI supply required currency note into the system via the banking and ATMs to come into the circulation to ease off the inconvenience. So I believe it's just a matter of another 1 week to 10 days before things starts getting normalized.
Now to China, where an internet conference, which took place in the Chinese city of Wuzhen this week, has proven to be controversial. Adrian Brown reports.
Rising up from the marshland, an oddly shaped building where Chinese officials are outlining their vision of what the internet should be. E-commerce is driving that vision. It's seen as key to helping a slowing economy. And these are the brands in the driving seat, companies that have come from nowhere to be some of the biggest in the world. This electronic board shows the growing power of online shopping in China. Between midnight and 11 a.m. local time on Wednesday, the Alibaba portal recorded more than 13 million deals.
I think that China's domestic consumption market has a bright future because China's middle class is growing very fast and they need better products and services.
Access to sensitive aspects of this conference are more limited. A forum called Anti-Cyber Terrorism was held in a small conference room which quickly filled up, with the result that many journalists were turned away. Human rights groups say this conference is a propaganda event designed to give international legitimacy to Chinese censorship. But that's not how some foreign delegates see it.
I don't think we are at all. I think China is here and it's here to stay. And you have to be here to understand how seriously they take the internet as a social and economic powerhouse.
Well, at the last World Internet Conference a year ago, guests and delegates had uncensored access to the internet. You could access Facebook, Twitter and Google. Yet this year it has been impossible to access any of those three sites.
Restrictions that are still expected when the 4th World Internet Conference is due to be held a year from now.
Now, here in the Middle East, Emirati businessman Mohammed Al-Abba wants to create a Middle East rival to Amazon. His new e-commerce business venture will be called Noon.com and it's due to launch in January. It's planning on offering 20 million products from fashion to electronics. Alibaba has teamed up with Saudi Arabia's sovereign wealth fund in the billion-dollar venture, and that's created a unicorn, the Silicon Valley name for a startup company valued at over $1 billion. A decacorn is a word used for companies over $10 billion. According to VentureBeat, there were 229 unicorns as of January this year. And of course, the largest unicorns include Uber, Airbnb and Snapchat. Well, to discuss the launch of Alibaba's new online shopping venture, with me now, Andrew Kitson. He's the Senior Global ICT Analyst with London-based BMI Research. Andrew, good to have you with us. We're talking about the quest for an Arabian unicorn here. In the Middle East, shopping still takes place mostly in giant malls. Even there, though, footfall is falling. Do you think there's an appetite or even a market for a Middle East venture like Noon.com?
Absolutely. We at BMI forecast e-commerce sales to grow from $22 billion to $43 billion across the whole of the Middle East and North Africa region between 2016 and 2020. And that's proved by very strong performance by sites like souk.com, nahel.com and many others. So I think there is very much room for a new player in the market, and certainly this investment is welcomed by us.
Now, e-commerce has been pretty slow to take off in the Middle East region, even though mobile phone penetration, particularly in the Gulf states, is among the highest in the world. Why is that, do you think?
There are 2 or 3 key problems that need to be addressed here. First is logistics. Transport solutions need to be employed to allow deliveries to be made speedily and efficiently, getting goods from distributors to vendors to customers. Secondly, there's needed to be a strong digital payments platform that people trust and will readily use. That's now changing. We've got people like Souk and now Noon developing their own payment systems that integrate with their sites. People can quickly, efficiently and trustworthily buy goods.
Andrew, to justify its unicorn status, Noon.com is going to have to achieve scale. It plans eventually to offer deliveries in Egypt, the Arab world's most popular country, but one where the logistical challenges are enormous. What are those challenges? And what is the competitive landscape like in Egypt?
Okay, well, Aramex is probably the best known logistics company in the region, and fortunately, Noon's backer, Alibaba, has invested in the company. They are also working with Uber, so they have a fleet of users they can send out, deliver packages quickly, efficiently and very cheaply. That's the key issue here. They need to be doing this very cheaply, otherwise the proposition just doesn't work. Look at Amazon.com, they do very well. They use third parties to deliver goods and services, and now they're looking to invest in drone technology. This is something that Noon could do as well.
Andrew, Saudi Arabia's state-backed public investment fund is one of the main backers of this new venture. Of course, Saudi Arabia needs to diversify its sources of income away from oil. The fund's also participating in a $100 billion tech fund with Japan's SoftBank, in one of the largest tech funds on the planet. What do you know about that?
There's not a lot of detail, of course. I mean, being a private company, they disclose very little data, so it's very difficult to see. But you know, SoftBank being one of the biggest technology companies in the world, they invest in microprocessors, they're developing robots, they already do a lot of work with drones. And of course, they own telecoms companies as well. So SoftBank in particular has a very wide, very broad experience that they can bring to this venture. And those are the obstacles that Noon.com must overcome. So working with SoftBank and through its partners is a very good strategic move.
Andrew, the Saudi fund invested, what, $3.5 billion in ride-sharing startup Uber back in June. It also splashed out, SoftBank that is, splashed out on British chip designer ARM Holdings. It's an early investor in Chinese e-commerce giant Alibaba as well. Do you think there are any risks to this investment strategy?
Of course, there are always risks in developing what is essentially a tried and trusted business model. As I say, that Amazon is present in the market, even if not directly. eBay is widely searched and used. Souk.com is very well established already. So what's needed, I think, is a local company with local expertise that appeals to local people and can develop web pages that are specific to particular countries and will appeal to particular audiences.
Now, here's the thing. GCC finance ministers agreed last month to implement VAT to be introduced sometime in, January 2018. What impact would the introduction of VAT have on the purchasing power of already, I mean, let's face it, quite wealthy customers in Gulf countries in particular?
I think they will be able to adapt, and I'm sure they'll be taking this into account once they launch. This is because using e-commerce you can keep prices for your goods and products very low because you're not having to invest in retail space. You can centralize all your storage in a large facility, keep down costs. As I say, using third parties as well as your proprietary logistics systems, you can keep costs down there. So I think on the whole this tax, although unwelcome, they will absorb it quite easily, and consumers will maybe even be incentivized to go onto e-commerce sites rather than shopping in malls.
And one final question. We were just looking at Adrian Bound's report on the Internet conference in China this week, which has raised questions about censorship. Saudi Arabia heavily investing now in the Internet. Is that raising issues of censorship as well?
It does to an extent, and I think the missing piece of the puzzle that Noon is presenting us is a lack of integration with social media, Facebook, WhatsApp, etc., and the local equivalents in the Gulf region. Now, obviously, censorship is an issue that must be considered, but with e-commerce that is not necessarily so much of an issue when you're trying to sell things. It comes down to when customers give their feedback and whether they comment favourably or unfavourably on goods produced by local manufacturers.
Andrew, thanks for that. Good to have you with us. Andrew Kitson there, Senior Global ICT Analyst with London-based BMI Research. Well, also this week, Snap, messaging app Snapchat's parent firm, reportedly filed for an initial public offering. Why is this significant? Well, Snap would become the first of these venture-backed unicorns to test public markets. Its value is estimated to be between $20 to $25 billion. That'll make it the largest IPO since Chinese commerce giant Alibaba went public 2 years ago. And finally, Iran's airshow opened on the island of Kish this week. It's the first airshow since international sanctions were lifted. And Iran is desperate to upgrade its aging civil aviation fleet. Dorsa Jabari reports now from Kish Island in the Persian Gulf.
For the first time in nearly 40 years, the Russian Knights Acrojet team put on a show in the Islamic Republic. But this airshow is not just about family fun. This is where Iranian officials are hoping big deals will take place. And one of the most important visitors, the defense minister, was on hand to kick off the 4-day event.
If aircraft engines could be manufactured by Iranians, then our aviation industry could become world-renowned.
Iran Air is the country's largest airline, but it has faced many challenges over the years. It has a fleet of 35 planes, and its average aircraft is 25 years old. International sanctions have prevented Iran from purchasing not only aircrafts, but also parts. President Hassan Rouhani's government ordered 118 Airbus jets in January of this year. But the deal is not done yet. The main issue is financing, since major Iranian banks remain under US sanctions.
This agreement has passed positive steps, and in the very near future the planes will be delivered. But international deals have their own intricate hurdles. 85% of the deal has been finalised.
With over 100 Iranian companies taking part, the government is hoping this airshow will attract an international audience. At the same time, it's showing off its military hardware as well.
This is the Ababil 3. It's a surveillance drone. It can go up to about 200 kilometers an hour, and it has a surface ceiling of 5,000 meters. Now, the cameras are here and here. They take photos, and this camera underneath is used for filming. Now, it can go up to 4 hours, and it has night vision as well. This is 100% Iranian in design, assembly, and parts. All of this is made under the country's defense ministry, and it is now for sale for the first time.
Iran's Revolutionary Guard's alleged role in the aviation sector has been an obstacle for some. Many Western companies are skeptical that any sale to Iran's official airline would remain there. For now, this airshow could be a step towards improving Iran's dismal airline safety record. According to government statistics, since the early 2000s, there have been 37 plane crashes with over 900 people killed. If things change, future generations here may be as excited about flying as this young girl. Dorsa Jabari for Counting the Cost, Al Jazeera.
Time for us to come into land. That's our show for this week. But there's more for you online at aljazeera.com/CTC. That'll take you straight to our page, which has individual reports, links, and entire episodes for you to catch up on. You can also get in touch with us. Tweet me at @afinnegan. And do use the hashtag AJCTC when you do. Drop us an email, countingthecost@aljazeera.net, our address. And that's it for this edition of Counting the Cost. I'm Adrian Finnegan. From the whole team here in Doha, thanks for being with us. The news is next on Al Jazeera. I'll see you again. Bye for now.